Right, sir. For those of you who perhaps didn't catch the opening of our interview here this morning, we're speaking with the Honorable Walter P. McConaughy, who is the United States Ambassador to Korea. He is home on leave at this time, visiting with his parents here in Montevallo. Dr. Orr, I'd like to have you come in with us now, and we've talked about the international situation somewhat briefly, but I would like to have Mr. McConaughy tell us a little bit about what it's like to be an ambassador, to live in these foreign lands, whether actually the life of an ambassador and his family is as private as it might be, or whether you are in the goldfish bowl, so to speak, all of the time. If you will, please, sir.
Well, naturally, the life is not a very private one, but we do not find the pace a killing one. It's an active life, but we enjoy being with people. We love the Korean people, who are very friendly, who are outgoing, and who love the American people, and who temperamentally have quite an affinity with the American people. So we find the hectic pace that we have to maintain there very congenial. Luckily, both my wife and I are in good physical condition. We can keep going 16 hours a day if necessary, as we often need to do. Our children also play their part as representatives of the United States. They have many contacts with Korean school children, and they are answering letters, or receiving visits, or paying visits with Korean children very often. We have quite a large responsibility to our American family in Korea too. As you all know, we have a very large American military establishment there. We have 50,000 American troops stationed in Korea under a United Nations command. The United Nations commander is an American, General Carter Magruder. And it is important, of course, to maintain close contact there, a real family feeling. So I often visit the front lines. I visit the American troops there, and I visit the Korean troops there. They work together. They stand side by side in the defense of freedom there. And we can all be proud in the magnificent posture of our forces there and the Korean forces. They certainly are determined to defend freedom, and I believe myself they are ready to meet any challenge which might be posed.
The South Korean troops then are good soldiers, so to speak, and do work side by side with our own troops, our 50,000 troops who are in Korea at the present time.
They certainly do. They're excellent troops. While Burma is still a neutralist country, an uncommitted country, you might say, I think that the Burmese people at heart are with us. They love freedom. They are an independent people. They like their own way of life, and they will not willingly go along with any interference with their way of life or with their sovereignty by any communist government or any other outside government. I think they will stand firm and foursquare for sound principles. U Nu is again in office as Prime Minister. He was out for a period of about a year and a half. He is known as a neutralist, a man who refuses to take sides, but he is certainly very strongly non-communist, whether he chooses to call himself anti-communist or not. And he would certainly resist with all of the means at his disposal any incursion into his country. And I think the Burmese people will be highly resistant also to subversion and infiltration, as well as to any actual physical invasion of their country. So I believe that we have a sound government there, a people who are basically non-communists and who, as very devout Buddhists, find the communist philosophy very antipathetic to them. The country is making progress economically too. It's the greatest rice exporting nation in the world. The people there believe in a rather simple way of life. So they don't have a boom and bust economy. They can get along without the luxuries of life. If necessary, they simply pull their belts a little tighter, and there's always enough to eat. So the country doesn't have any severe economic problem. So all in all, I'd say the situation in Burma is encouraging. Then a year at the National War College in Washington, then to Shanghai, where I again ran into a disaster, the takeover of China by the communists. My wife couldn't go there either on account of that very threatening situation. We were separated again for about 2 years. I was there when the communists came in, and finally got out in the spring of 1950 after a difficult time with the communists. I was named Consul General while I was in Shanghai. Then I was assigned to Hong Kong as Consul General. I was there for about 2 years, 50 to 52. Then I was in Washington as Director of the Office of Chinese Affairs for 5 years, from 52 to 57. Then to Burma as Ambassador for 2 years, and now I'm in Korea as Ambassador.
Certainly a most varied and interesting career. Dr. Walters, do you have a final question you'd like to ask?
I don't know how much time we have. I did think of this question, that many students, and I of course am interested in that particular angle, are sometimes perhaps discouraged in a career of this kind because of the language difficulty. Now, we've had some criticism in recent months about our Foreign Service at just about the time we have a man who is well versed in a particular language, he's shifted from one post to another. Do you find that there are serious difficulties on this language matter, or is English pretty fairly widely used throughout the world?
Well, I think the foreign languages are very important, Dean Walters. And it's my belief that every American representative who goes to a country where a more or less standard Western language, a world language is used, should learn that language. That applies to French, Spanish, German, Italian, Portuguese, at least those. Now, where what we call an exotic language is involved, such as Korean or Burmese or Chinese or Japanese, it is a major undertaking to learn to speak one of those languages. It's a matter of 2 or 3 years of full-time study, even for a man who is particularly proficient in languages. We must have Foreign Service officers who do this, and we are assigning Foreign Service officers regularly to do this. And we have a number of specialists in all of these languages, even the languages of the smaller countries of the Far East and the Middle East. But the men who have not specialized in this, who have already reached senior positions, cannot learn these languages and do that job unless they're a genius. Well, I'm not a genius, and I don't speak Korean. I know a few words, a few phrases, but I cannot speak the language. Fortunately, I don't have to use an interpreter because English is the secondary language of Korea. Practically all of the Koreans, except the farmers out in the country, know at least some English, and I get by very well with English. But I do have officers on my staff who are Korean language specialists, and they are indispensable. So I think we need to keep this thing in balance. I don't think we ought to be thrown off the track by the ugly American. We've got to have men who know the language, but not every man who serves in a country has got to be proficient in that language. If that were true, we would have just a few specialists who haven't had a chance really to get the broad gauge worldwide experience which is needed for the top positions. And as long as a man can't have everything, well, we have to compromise.
They would be linguists rather than ambassadors. Gentlemen, I'm afraid our time is up. I would very much like to continue at length here in our discussions with Mr. McConaughy, but time does not permit, and we have imposed on Mr. McConaughey's time almost too much already. Thank you, gentlemen. Dr. Walters, Dean of Alabama College, and Dr. Orr, Dean Emeritus of Alabama College, and our especial thanks to the Honorable Walter P. McConaughy, the United States Ambassador to Korea, who presently is home on leave, however, will be leaving tomorrow to return to his post in Seoul, Korea. Thank you very much, gentlemen.